Mr. Chairman, and thank all of you on the panel for sharing today. I want to speak to Ms. Wad for just a moment. In your testimony, you explained how the regulations in New York and California made it difficult for your businesses to flourish, so you moved to Austin, Texas. Just want to give you an opportunity and appreciate you coming and sharing today. Was there a specific moment when you realized you needed to move your business to a more business-friendly state?
Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, it started when I was in California, because first I was in California, then New York, then Austin. It started when I was in California, and when the cost of, and you see, this is where, when people ask, what was it a special thing? It was not a special thing. You know, it's one of those things, it's death by 1,000 cuts, literally. I mean, what people don't realize is we've got millions and millions and millions of lines of code. Each law, each regulation is a line of code. And to be compliant, it's almost impossible. I know that every day I'm probably violating the, you know, the 3 violations a day thing that people talk about. I know. And if I had some opponents, they could look easily into my 4 businesses or the nonprofits that I have, and they will find something. Not because I was being facetious, not because I wanted to be against the law, but because the law is so darn complicated that you're bound to make mistakes, even if you have lawyers and attorneys. It happens all the time. So at some point, after going through California, I eventually went to New York. New York was no better. Actually, I would argue, yeah, it was definitely no better. And I had to look around and really now take it seriously, the ranking of the most free states in the country. And eventually, that's when how I landed in Austin, in Texas, literally.
Well, although you have 50 state regulatory environments to choose from, you're still subject to the federal regulations wherever you go in the United States. And despite the improvements in your business since the move to Austin, what challenges would you share with us still persist even at the federal level?
Again, I get that question even about Africa. What would you address? And I'd say to people, by now, things have gotten so bad, Representative, that if you want to hear the truth from me, I believe that the best thing that it's not so, for me, it's no longer about talking about what the Fed has done wrong. It's about talking about what could they do right going forward. And going forward, I would argue that the House is so, the foundation of the House is so rotten. The founding fathers really were going for competitive jurisdictions. And, we've been eating away at that. And now there's cumbersomeness everywhere. So much that the easiest and best thing to do for Congress would be these zones that we call them, in my case, Prospera zones, that is what I'm doing in Africa. Because in Africa, we have a worse case situation than even the US. And the best way to do this is to basically, at the federal level, can we find zones where we apply a general repealer, basically repeal all the commercial laws and have a chance to start fresh. That's really what I'm advocating for at the federal level in the United States today. So let us create these zones where we can actually start fresh and create areas where we have new miracles of growth that can happen. Now let Texas compete with these zones. I think it's going to be the fastest way to clean things up, because otherwise we're just going to be sitting here in these circles complaining all day long about this law here, that law here, which I would argue does nothing. So at this point, we've got to be radical, we've got to be bold, because if something is not done quickly, radically, I'm afraid, Mr. Raskin, soon you're not going to have the United States of America to speak of. The only reason why we speak of the United States of America anywhere is because of the power of the U.S. Power of the U.S. because of economic power of the U.S. If the U.S. keep going down this path of overregulation, this country will be poor, and poor nations have no say. So that would be what I recommend. If we continue down this path, if we don't do anything, this country might not be spoken about.
Agreed.
In a few years.
Unfortunately, our government today is a far cry from what our founders intended. And today, unelected bureaucrats are some of the biggest spenders in Washington, and Congress has got to take back the power of the purse through common sense regulatory reforms. The REINS Act requires congressional approval of any federal agency rule with an impact of $100 million or more before they take effect. Dr. McLaughlin, I want to ask you, in your view, would implementing the REINS Act bring Congress more in line with what the drafters of the Constitution intended?
Yes, it would. Ultimately, regulations stem from congressional authority, and the REINS Act lines up with that line of thinking.
And in your research and a lot of things you've spoken about the economic impact of federal regulations, let me just ask, what effects on the economy would the REINS Act bring if it were to become law?
I think it'd be subtle. I think some of the threats of using the REINS Act would be more effective than actually using it. When agencies are aware that the REINS Act can be used, I think they'll act differently.
Thank you very much.
Gentleman's time has expired.